We are continuing to follow new developments in the investigation into Russian meddling in the 2016 election. It was revealed yesterday that a Senate committee will question President Trump's son-in-law and senior advisor, Jared Kushner, about his meeting with officials from a Russian bank.
The bank has deep ties to Russian President Vladimir Putin and Russian intelligence agencies. Now, the previously undisclosed meeting happened during the transition period.
It all comes as the Republican chairman of the committee investigating Russia's election interference is under pressure to recuse himself. Congressman Devin Nunes revealed yesterday that he met with an unnamed source on the White House grounds to review classified documents. And that happened one day before Nunes briefed the president on what he learned from those documents. So here's what the committee's ranking Democrat Congressman Adam Schiff had to say about his colleague's actions yesterday.
It's certainly not normal to go and receive information as the chairman of a committee that you can't share with your own committee members, but you go and share with the president, particularly if the investigation involves associates of the president.
Zeke Miller is a White House reporter for Time and a CBSN political contributor. Joining us from Washington, Zeke, let us get right into it. Where do you see things going from here? Is it possible for Chairman Nunes to regain some sort of credibility, or do you think he will have to recuse himself for this investigation to be untainted?
Now, that really will come down to Republicans on Capitol Hill. We've seen some sort of muted statements from them over the last couple of days. If they've been watching, sort of puzzled like everyone else, why did this happen in this fashion? And it really just goes to show regarding this entire saga, the way the Trump White House, the Trump administration, its allies have handled this issue. That there's that saying that it's not the crime, it's the cover-up. The way that they've handled this, both with regards to the press, with regards to members of Congress, and the investigations that are bipartisan going on, is sort of not confirming, not offering any information. Something comes out, as things inevitably do, and then it sparks a whole new round of like, oh yeah, that happened too, and then people keep pulling on these threads, and it drives, and it sort of takes on a life of its own, and sort of distracts the White House from its messaging. For Chairman Nunes, that's starting to happen to him too as he leads this investigation on Capitol Hill. He has not been forthright, not been forthcoming, and now it's sort of question. It started off with, where was he the day before? Oh, now he was at the White House. Who was he meeting with? And I'm sure we'll find out who he was meeting with. And that, not getting in front of this, not sort of offering, being transparent on the front end, will impeach some of his credibility. But whether or not he steps aside, that really will depend on his colleagues.
Zeke, Anne-Marie and I spoke to Senator John McCain, and he indicated to us that the cooperation at the Senate level in the Intelligence Committee in the Senate between Senators Burr and Warner seems to be a nonpartisan one. So do you think the Senate investigation will take center stage moving forward with the House committee under so much scrutiny?
I think that's certainly possible. They're going to be that's going to be the venue where Jared Kushner is going to testify. So that could be the next big step. And I think there's a reason also the White House wanted Jared Kushner, and he volunteered to testify, but in that venue rather than the House, because the Senate is, a bit more staid, a bit more steady. Yes, the questions are a bit more serious and sometimes deeper. The House can get gets a lot more partisan. There are a lot more members involved. The Senate's a little bit more controlled, contained environment for him. So it's possible we can see that venue sort of take on a much greater importance over the next couple of months as this investigation moves forward.
So, Zeke, once again, the way the White House is responding has, instead of created clarity, sort of muddied the waters. Yesterday, Sean Spicer said, hey, listen, anything is possible, when he was asked whether or not Nunes maybe got his information from the administration. And then last night, President Trump tweeted about the Clintons' connections to Russia. Does it seem like anyone is on the same page here?
No, and that's kind of the irony in all of this, is that there's an easy way for the White House to get through this, and that's you get it. It's a basic crisis communications 101. You get it out, you get it all out yourself, and you get it out fast. And the idea is that you tell your story. Don't let other people control that narrative for you. And that's exactly what is happening, and it's happened over the last 4 or 5 months. Every time there's a question about somebody's contacts with Russia, or who is on what phone call, the White House says nothing. And then it comes out that a communication that may or may not be nefarious and probably is just benign. That's the likelihood in almost all of these cases, that this is benign contact. And the White House won't offer any confirmation, only at the point when it's incontrovertible. And then they'll say, oh, yeah, that happened and that was benign. But so why have you been concealing it for so long? That is sort of the bigger issue with how the White House is constructing this. If they were just a little bit more transparent on the front end, and I think they would find a lot of their problems being resolved earlier, because some of these contacts, even between General Flynn and the Russian ambassador, the discussion of Russia's sanctions in particular was a troublesome one. But that level of contact is something that would be certainly to be expected between an incoming national security advisor and a foreign official.
And to that point, something else Senator McCain mentioned to us, that if the president was just willing to acknowledge that the Russians had attempted to interfere in our elections, a lot would be put to the table, put aside. They could focus on getting their agenda accomplished. Let's dig a little deeper, Zeke, into what we've been talking about. You mentioned that senior advisor Jared Kushner has agreed to speak to a Senate committee about his meeting with executives from that Russian bank, which many acknowledge is a front for Russian espionage. During the transition now they did that. How problematic is it for the White House that they didn't disclose this meeting previously?
It's they're going to find a reason why the White House really hasn't come up with a good reason for that contact yet. I'm sure they'll put one forward. If there was some sort of nefarious thing going on there, now we'll find out because he's testifying on Capitol Hill. Congress has investigatory powers there, and the FBI has its ongoing investigation. But if it was just a benign contact, why? That's the sort of thing they understand that there's a lot of scrutiny, a lot of questions about the president's contact. Why not put out a list of every official's meeting with every foreign leader or potentially troublesome contact that they've had over the last 2 or 3 months? Just have somebody start up a list.
Zeke,
that would solve so many problems.
Is it just because they don't have the right people in place and they were not prepared for this transition, and a lot of these things are catching them unawares?
But at this point, it shouldn't be unawares, right? We saw what happened with Flynn, and now we're seeing Kushner. Anyone who's had any questionable contact with any Russian member, any Russian almost, should probably be coming forward right about now.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, certainly during on November 9th, they were completely unprepared for the task of taking over the presidency. But separately, they're also, a lot of them are experienced in politics, and you see what doesn't work, and you adapt and evolve. There's really no reason that they haven't taken these sort of preemptive steps, and I think it cuts to a sort of a culture of almost reflexive defensiveness that we've seen from this White House time and again on a lot of issues, where they're unwilling to even offer their critics even a little bit of put out a list of something that might not be great for them today, but it saves them a lot of problems tomorrow. There's a desire at all points, even if it causes them a little pain immediately, to sort of clam up and get completely defensive. And it's kind of a short-sighted approach from this administration, and something that, all administrations do go through this, but it's a sign of maturity when they're willing to take sort of the hit today to save, the really bad hit tomorrow.
Right. So, Zeke, before we let you go, we have to talk about what I presume President Trump hopes will be the conversation today. He's signing a few executive orders having to do with the environment and jobs. He's basically undoing a lot of what President Obama did in terms of climate change regulations. Do you see this as an effective move, particularly after the health care failure? I will let you define the word effective in this question.
Yeah, I mean, yes, this is a promise that he made to his voters that he was going to roll back some of these quote unquote troublesome regulations that were, a burden on job creation and getting people back to work. So from a messaging perspective, yes, it's another, thing he can check off on his box of promises to voters. Now that, the big, line A item he failed to accomplish last week in healthcare. The question is, in 2 years or 3 years, will repealing these executive orders actually get people back to work? Get coal miners back on the job, reopen power plants and things like that. That's the big unanswered question. Some of these, the switch to clean power is going to continue anyway, despite the rollback of these regulations away from coal, because it's technology has made some of these things a lot cheaper, more efficient. Yes, in certain cases, I'm sure there'll be some success stories, but it'll be very difficult for the Trump administration. They're going to have to work pretty hard to sort of come up with to really prove to their voters that they've really accomplished a lot, and that this will actually get them back to work.
Right.
All right, Zeke Miller of Time. Thanks so much, Zeke. We appreciate it as always.
Thanks for having me.